While our exchanges are in English, the language we speak to each other is less invested in nation states or given identities than what Robin Blazer calls image nations, an imaginary in-between that commands our first loyalty. And Dubravka has been my guide to the astonishing poetry, poetics, and art of the former Yugoslavia. All poetry is local despite the frequent obscenity of high and middle-minded humanists that great poetry is universal and timeless, as if there was a one-size-fits-all verse for a unified world, as if poetry wasn't flooded by time. Djuric's poems thicken when read within and against the context of her time and place. Some basic history helps of Yugoslavia and the Cold War and of post-communism in Serbia, as well as some sense of the post-war poetry and art in Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia, Montenegro, and Slovenia in particular. Don't miss Cat Painters, her anthology of contemporary Serbian poetry co-edited with Biljana Obradović, or her overview of Yugoslavian conceptual art written with Miško Suvaković, her lifelong partner, Impossible Histories, Historical Avant-Gardes, Neo-Avant-Gardes, and the Post-Avant-Gardes in Yugoslavia, 1918 to 1991, published by MIT Press. Biljana shows great ingenuity and verve in bringing these poems into English. It is great to have her with us today. She is a Serbian-American poet, translator, critic, and professor of English at Xavier University in Louisiana. World Tech Editions published her poetry collection Incognito in 2017. Djuric, through her work on the feminist journal Pro Feminina and other places, and as an editor and activist, is one of the most important voices in Serbian poetry to challenge male dominance. Be sure to check out her Pen Sound page and the links there. She's a professor at the Faculty of Media and Communications in Belgrade. In addition to her many books of poetry in Serbian, Djuric is the main Serbo-Croatian translator of contemporary American poetry with a focus on poetry that challenges conventional lyric modes. It's not that conventional lyric is too poetic, but that it's not poetic enough. Quote from Dubravka, "A poem writes itself in the rhythm of movement. These poems channel and challenge self-reflexivity. And if her poems prize disruption, Djuric holds to her motto, quote, no disruption is absolute, because she rarely notes the closest exile, the closest exit is a blind alley. But there is no retreat into the asemic in these words. Sense is at stake. Courage is hard to come by, and in poetry, even rarer than the nectar of justice. I don't mean bravado. That's plentiful and often necessary, depending on which side of history you land on. Yes, I know I've said that Djuric's poetry doesn't have sides. Courage in poetry is grounded in what Hölderlin calls timidity, the ability not to know, not to affirm, not to assert, the ability not to get baited. Such is the netherland of Djuric's poems. Think of these works not as poetry in translation, but as poetry in transition, poetry as transformation. Dubravka Djuric's foreignness is near.
Thank you, Charles, and thank you, James, and thank you, Biljana. Thank you all for all your support for a decade. And while I'm listening to Charles, I remember in 1901 when James and Charles were in Belgrade, in Novi Sad, and they were reading their poems, and I immediately try to imitate, because I saw the voice is important while reading a poetry. So thank you all, and I'm very sorry that I was not able to be with you in this space. But I will try to read my poetry with the help of Biljana, and I will start with reading one poem in my mother tongue. I have a problem with naming my mother tongue, so I will never explicitly say it. The poem is Nostalgia, and all the poems we will read have to do with the war in former Yugoslavia. So I will read it in my mother tongue. It's Nostalgia. Nostalgija je neobičan poriv, izleće iz sovine glave, mudro se ogleda u njoj. Izašla iz morske pene, lepotom opčini svet. Granice se ne mogu preći, govor o slobodi ograničava, romantične sabljike, okićene jelke za neimanove praznike. Praznujem opuštanje, praznujem ručkove, praznujem ćutanje. Vozila prolaze, sve mimo mene nema značaja. Množe se znaci pretnje, gore i dole, nestaju potresima, vatreni jezici zmija, ostarele lepotice, snažno telo u peni algi, potom iz ovog zastora pomalja se stvor i štapama grabi ka izvoru. Dolina se proteže pored nas, mitologija meseca zavijena u purpur kristala, zalivi bez stege.
I think I'm reading the second poem, Border. Everything is in perfect order. It is not in order. See within easy reach of the index finger, salty, sweet, unpleasant, tiring, within reach. Fume in the curvy ride of the Istrian karst, pathways and smells, grass, feces, bug, dog, a crowd could be anywhere. It waves in the wind, Isola, exposed in its wasted wandering, immediate experience of branching, borders that are not crossed, of brain curvatures within reach. Fume on the flying aerojet without a helmsman on the ship, released down the water. It's gone. The memory of the present eats its very own existence. The stone sways, gives way to pressure, dizziness of a glamorous inscription, mystic night drinks confronted with transience. The body growls, the movement, throaty sound, scream on the stage for you.
Rain. We will read this small poetic drama in two voices, so I will begin. Rain, a small poetic play in several voices. A scene with indefinite contours. On one wall is a built-in window. And this rain is getting on my nerves. It's thundering like crazy. I can't even walk on my computer, work on my computer. The rain in hissing, going wild, flooding. I'm wet while I wait for you to step. I'm in a safe place. Who said I'm waiting for it to stop? I keep quiet. A woman needs to be quiet. That stupid mad kid who doesn't know that what to do with himself said it to me. His voice broke, yelling. Perhaps he had sung as well. Had he sung? The rain descended. You know that the rain falls in sheets. Kisha, zavjesa od kiše pada. What was that? Another time. Humidity, humidity. I go so wet like while I wait for the rain to stop. She's messed up. Do you want to kill yourself? I asked her. Yes, I want to. Even more than that, she answered. I can't stand the rain nor the thunder. I can't stand the humidity. Some kind of liquid is constantly pouring out.
Hello, Father, who is deep on the stage with a wish in motion which is addressed as, we're the ones. I am the one, but all that you're saying is nonsense because you must fill time, stage time, as opposed to the real stage time, real time. When the girl stops crying, she turns around and sees her face in the mirror. D. Can you imagine? I was holding a banana in my hand and they took it from me. The girl spots the boy and curiously, inquisitively stares at him while he is peering on the grass. A. Hyperbolic time is the one which devours me, digests, and then defecates me. You look at me in the eyes jealously, look at me and envy me. Hyperbolic time is the one which devours me. D. As if he wants to go off stage. That sight is very familiar. They were swallowing dumplings. They ate without getting filled. She was waving with her hands. She was pointing at ships that were sailing in and taking over all the space left in that story. Don't talk nonsense. I'm sick of hearing how you're so full of yourself. The rain still doesn't stop falling. The drops are collecting in a recess. They're a breakthrough. Eat up the hyperbolic space. Space breaks up into time. Sequences in which the female writer summarizes outside sensations, the moods of the moment, the fatal attraction of facts, the fascination with virtual space. B. This was common around already. Come out of that hole, she says to an invisible character on the stage. I can't look at him, addresses the female writer. Leave, leave, D sings. I've driven away the darkness from the garden of fear. The synopsis of steady, the magic powder has disappeared. B. Come on already. Come out. A. Stop fooling around. Who are you speaking to? Stop screaming. I can't stand screaming. The girl turns toward the imaginary figure, which she can only see, caresses her hair, smiles, and laughs. N. You think you're interesting? You are wrong. Everything that you're saying is dumb, empty. You are a real dumb, empty-headed male writer. She turns around and leaves.
D. Imagine that. I had to run up to catch the bus, not to be late. I had to figure out how to use the infinitive and only the infinitives. I wrote an ode to infinitives. This is refer to the redefinition of Serbian and Croatian languages. In the new redefinitions of language, and infinitives are not Serbian, but are characteristic to Croatian language, and Serbian is not. So this is a poem, part of the poem where I state that infinitive is equally in both languages. How they give, now they give a different rhythm to the sentence. With them, the rhythm in a sentence is different. Discussion about language has poisoned the environment. I can't stand that anymore. But the languages now are more distant and distant and distant and distant and distant. I don't see any way out. Who says why? Suddenly the light go out. The stage is completely dark. The girl lights up the spirit which hits beside her, signs an incomprehensible tune in an unfamiliar language. Ti ti to ti pi ku ku ni ya. tutti, lipiti, 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 tutti, da. Everyone is crawling into darkness, but the girl remains invisible. What can we do? This is awful. Every once in a while, there is no power. All our lives, those politicians have kept bullshitting. Save power, save power. And now this fucking storm is saving us power. Curtain. Okay, now I will start reading one poem, The Rule of Emptiness After the War. And when I wrote it, I have a reference, the siege of Sarajevo. So we want to develop something, but we don't know how. We want to reach something, but we don't know what. We want to be somewhere, but we don't know where. The concept of space leads to the reduction. Let's be more. The concept of the mind brings us to magnolias in the gold garden of vertigo. That is how the rule of the background is created in such a way. In the sky blue color of Baroque building, kinetics of bands, mysticism and poetry, the cold of coat, blisters be. Let's be more tolerant. Your intolerance is threatening to me, flamboyant trend of the bite. Bring a feminist, but make sure she's pretty. This is a reference to the demonstration against Milosevic in 90s, when one very important politician said to the people, bring us feminists, but make sure she's pretty. I don't want to say anything about the process of writing, about the production of illusion, lollipop. Cats get attached to those who take care of them in a strange way. That's love. Long ago in 2010, I didn't know that would happen. Wars were behind us. Hunger and other new illnesses were raising havoc. I began to do new research so I could find a vaccine that would keep me awake. But a transgender person came up to me and asked me when I had become a woman. I was surprised by such a question because darkness was brutally descending onto the deserted fields of the empty screen which froze the picture long ago in the year 2010, and the citizens of that ghost town didn't know what to do with themselves and whether a new disease was approaching or a new war which would destroy the rest of the cells of their organisms. Everyone believed it had to do with a wide-ranging conspiracy aimed at disabling us from leading normal lives. Feminists know how to be strenuous and exclusive. Locked in a closet, they have a connection with reality. They lose the connection with reality. We want to resist politics. The painters sat by the canvas and painted eternal beings in the shape of the young woman. They are losers. They don't have jobs. They are afraid to, so don't dare to confront the harsh circumstances that shackle them. Typical New York food. combinatorics I don't understand. While I go around the town, you ask me, what are my political views? You know I'm anxious because negative answers are unacceptable, because on the dock there are a branch of hydrogens. So I asked myself how I belong there with my story. Biljana, could you?
It was winter with hunger and harsh life conditions had left their mark. We buried the corpses in the backyard in the once beautiful gardens. Star Wars has done its job. People couldn't stand it anymore. They'd fall into a coma or they would be overcome with an insurmountable anger. They would destroy everything in front of them. I was afraid to leave home, barely even to fetch water. We drank rainwater, and we all knew that it was a matter of a conspiracy which would lead to barbarous liquidations. I looked at old books written in an incomprehensible language that few people knew. The stench of corpses spread everywhere. No one remained untouched. I was obsessed with photographing it. I wanted to leave the mark from this draconian time. This is just a part of the poem. It goes on for a while.
But I was afraid to leave the house. Infections were spreading. At first, people would get sick mentally. They would stop behaving like human beings. They became dogs, cats, or plants. Then their bodies would suddenly begin to deteriorate. I was afraid for myself and my loved ones. We were still able to cope with the hope that we would survive. Only sometimes I would fall losing hope, which was dangerous considering I wasn't sure I would be able to return from that state. Phones were not working and any means of communication was lacking, all until at some moment we developed our ability to communicate through telepathy. Biljana?
Um, Soon, we began to believe in the occult, in everything we were able to discard in the past heartlessly. I didn't know where to hide so as not to be exposed more than necessary. I would put my head in the sand, or I would read graphic novels which had once been so popular. People tried to overcome alienation. We slept next to each other in order to warm up, in order to feel the warmth of another human being. It was a feeling we had forgotten. We learned how to talk all over again, to walk again as if doing this for the very first time. We could not sleep at night. The air was filled with different sounds, human voices, the noise of machines and cars. But without physical proof, they had really surrounded us. I was afraid to leave my hallway. The world seemed dangerous, destroyed, broken. And in that environment, ourselves were breaking, and every attempt to try to restore them was once more prevented. Stores had not been open a long time, or people were bypassing them because they believed that an overabundance of goods in them would create a particular dependence, which was unhealthy and would lead to the strangest damage, both psychological and physical. And they were sure that such a materialistic civilization would lead to ruin. I was not sure what to do with myself. I walked the same path to the bed, to the bathroom, to the room, to the kitchen. It was a simulation of ancient rituals we had long abandoned. As humans, we discarded it, and now in misery, all that remained was to devise new trite rituals so as to be able to reconnect with energies which had given us meaning and restored the very vitality to exist on this planet. I forgot how to write and how to talk. I still moved in some half-conscious state of being. Some new animal species had emerged that we knew nothing about, some new plants. We feared we would have to start all over again. Who are we now? Everyone asked the same question. Spatial and time dimensions gained new meaning and new forms, and we knew the time had come for the uncertain restoration lies ahead.
Now I will read a poem called Otsevi, which in Slovenian means reflections. I was in 2007 in the center of Ljubljana downtown, and I look around and actually introduce Slovenian words into my poems. So this is what I see while I turning around myself. Ave Grazia plena, reflections, Corso, Basel, H&M, Zara, Thunder, Noise, Otsevi, reflections, a little bold. O lipa u lipnju, a weeping willow. Flowers, coast, Ljubljanica. It is a river in downtown Ljubljana. Hey, I need to tell you something. Mama, 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 mommy. Are you on a diet? Yes, and on the rigorous one. No chance. Znaš kaj me zanima? In pyramid. Order right away. Kaj? Ah, res. Okay, sure. On pride. Otsevi, reflection. Za popoln užitek. Fabiani, little goldfish. Nazaj, nazaj. Ribji trg. Sadjarsko-vrtlarsko društvo. Kako se vratijo? Ogledi mest s ladjic. Since 1957. Darila, Rokus, Rifts, Prešern. Prešern is romantic poet and most important in poetry tradition of Slovenia. Rifts, Prešern, WC, Strikarjeva street, Cankarjevo nadbrežje, allowed for kolesarje. Pharmacy, centralna lekarna, Prešernov skver. Cincin, kavarna, Zlatarna Celje. Centrum Merkur, ura, meaning watch, copper. Sometimes I would stand on the corner to see the light. So this is another coast town in Ljubljana, in Slovenia seaside, copper, and that's experience being in copper on the seaside. Sometimes I would stand on a corner to see the light, hiding from it. That is the corner in which there is a shadow. Often I'm not bewitched by the war. I'm watching how the rest of the world rots on the screen. Deklica je sedla za mizo and ate. That's how I speak Slovenian. We sit and our heads ache, stomach. We yearn for the sip of salted water, submarine, navigational systems. I'm falling into the horror of insecurities. That's what would another woman do? Globoko, meaning deep in Slovenian. Globoko, inside you. Globalna identiteta, hibridni subjekt. And Biljana will start to read, and we will read it in two voices, a non-narrative poem of poetry, which is after Croatian poet Vlado Martek, after Michael Palmer, and two Serbian poets, but from Vojvodina, Slobodan Tishman, Vladimir Kopicel, and Rosemary Waldrop. So Biljana, please, you could start. I don't hear you. No, I don't hear you, and I don't know why.
Hello?
Yes, now I hear
Hear
you.
me
Thank
now?
you. Yes, thank you.
Okay. She's the one who hinted at this empty space disappeared beyond reach. The one who vacated this space was empty, empty, empty. The spaces reoriented, institutions occupy minds, the invasions on my integrity. Little Dubravka, extend your hand to the palm. Here's my hand's palm, a butterfly that closes its wings, spreads its mind. Little Dubravka, flies fly, people have ill intentions. You return to poetry in despair, helpless to move. Hills are created in the mountains, blue, white sky, color spreads. Don't be afraid in the darkness of the sea. They extend their hands and show me their palms in desperation. You cannot even cry. There were wars in the dark, the machine which produces small leaves, pages of books. A book opens, a book closes. In the darkness, I'm afraid that the moment will not come when the rosary will approach me. Show me the palm of the hand in dark blue, despair, desperation. It's dark and very sad. Everything that has happened. The book opens, the book closes, the book is writing itself. I'm not sane when I say I'm overcome by heat. Small pandas fall, which will never give up and will never understand how cruel the world is in which they found themselves. Pay attention on how many black veils have come down from the sky, but everything still ended quickly, even though infinity gaped over the abyss. Someone would have been my substitute, would have taken care of me. Waves that I sieciam are caught in the attention net of memory, the construction of memory. It's unforgettable to sit at the beach and smiatise, laugh. The eyes are teary. The head falls on the pillow, on a shoulder. A poem writes itself in the rhythm of movement. Dear Daria, when you don't write to me, I worry. What would Alex Montenegro say? A monk is upset because we came, doesn't wish to explain anything. Through a crack in the wall, a fly barely flees through, and I leave as I have come. But a much more complicated world is left behind. He's worried. I am nervous. She's going to continue in Serbian.
Okay, I will just say that Alex Montenegro is American Studies scholar, which is very important for me and supportive. And also Daria Žilić is Croatian poet and critic who is very important, and it was important for me to mention them. And this poem I wrote going from Serbian to Croatian, and I very much like to read it in the original, because when I read, I try to imitate the melody, which differs melody of Serbian and Croatian languages. Ako sreću merim tugom, nisam tu. Ako mi čaša kaže zdravo, molitva pada u vodu. U beznađu tuge bijesna sam na sebe. Ako jastvo ne može da se iskaže, pesma će me napustiti, a ja je ne napuštam. Ako je nebo plavo, ponor je crn. Ako je kofer kolač, ja sam drška. Ako ponor pada, i ja za njim. Samo mržnja nije rešenje, i rešenja nema, što je utješno. Ne želim utjehu, jer je lanac želja pokrenut. Sreća nije u srcu, ako srce nije na mestu, mjesto se pomera. Ako srce skakuće, pjesma se ispisuje. Sama je pružila ruku da obeleži teritoriju. Ako se pesma ispisala, nije mi olakšala nemogućnost kretanja. Nisam se pomerila, ali krug je zatvoren. Torba otvorena, a pjesma ćuti, šuti. Ja vičem, urlam izbezubljeno. Ona viče na mene, ja se povlačim, a pesma se ispisuje se. Jer ako je tako važna riječ koja sa sobom povlači energiju stiha, stihija me neće preplaviti, povlačim se, propadam. Ako pesma ulazi u dijalog sa pjesmom, želim se povući, povlačim se i vičem na sebe. Nikada pjesma ne odustaje, ništa ne propada što se ne odražava. Želim opstati na površini. Ko je rekao da pesma žudi? Ko je rekao da se pjesma želi otjeloviti? Ako se pesma stalno menja, ja šutim. Neko neće spoznati dubinu gluposti, pesmu. Ako si tužna, utešit ću te. Ako želiš plakati, pjesma će te utješiti. Ko je spao na niske grane, pašće još na niže. Nije pjesma koja misli, koja moli, ja je molim. Molim te, pjesmo, podrži me u ovome, budi milostiva. Ako je glupost bezgranična, ja sam ograničena. Nemoj gubiti vreme dok čekaš, čekam. Glad pesme nije glad za glupošću, a ona je tu. Iako nisam, iako jesam, nigde ne idem bez tebe. Vjenčala sam se s glupošću, tu je glupost velika, veličanstvena. I will try a little bit to protect me, pjesmo, when I discard a poem when in returns it's gone. Dear pjesmo, do you yearn for the book? If a book is a bush of love, that is a blaze. I love you, pjesmo. Don't abandon me if I move towards you. Extend your hands. I'll go around you. If I change, pjesmo sees through me. Poem recognizes me, and I will not leave me. If I move forward, pjesma returns to me to itself. If I return to myself, I return to it. In a book is pjesma, which yearns for extra textuality. If I yearn for a poem, I yearn for you, because words in a change of happiness move away. Well, I think that it's in my hand. It disappears from the view as it becomes non-material. If matter is the mother of a poem, the view falls on the page that has written itself. Self-awareness of pjesme is searching for a space for itself. It's not certain it can handle the emptiness of the surface. Dear poem, the agony quickly disappears, and I have recognized with a C. It leaves me because I want an empty page, etc., etc. I don't know if we have more time.
No, that's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Lieber nicht im Dorf bleiben. Der Gemeinderat treibt ihn nach Hause. Er erhält dafür ein Stück Schafskäse. Alles, was dieser Freude kann.
You can either, yeah, you can, yeah. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Segue. If you can make your way to your seats. I just want to remind our online audience, the entrance fee is $5 and you can Venmo the Segue Foundation. All the proceeds go to the readers. All right, today we have the great thrill of having Fanny Howe here, and Joan Jonas is here to introduce her. So I'll give it over to Joan.
Good evening. Anyway, hi, Fanny. Fanny and I have known each other since the, early 60s, I think, right? And our lives have come together, gone apart, because Fanny has lived in California. And so every once in a while we have time together, which is great. And today is that time, a little bit of time. And so thank you for asking me to introduce this wonderful, brilliant poet. And so Charles did a poetic introduction. I'm doing a fragmented prosaic introduction. So I'm skipping around in this. Fanny Howe is a poet, novelist, short story writer, and essayist. She has published more than 20 books of poetry and prose. Her major works of poetry include One Crossed Out, Gone, A Second Childhood, and On the Ground, among others. Her collected essays are in 3 revealing volumes: The Wedding Dress, Meditation on Word and Life, The Winter Sun. Notes on a Vocation, and The Needle's Eye, Passing Through Youth. And Charles Ruiz says, you can follow the arc of her life in the titles. For her work, she's been awarded the Lenore Marshall Prize from the Academy of American Poets, the Ruth Lilly Prize from the Poetry Foundation, a gold medal from the Commonwealth Club of California. She's a professor emerita of writing and literature from the University of California, San Diego, and presently she lives in Cambridge, Mass, where she was born, I believe. Most recently, Fanny wrote the play God's Fool, The Life of St. Francis of Assisi, recently staged at La Mama in 2022. It was produced and directed by Martha Clark, who arranged all the music and settings. I saw that. I love the writing around this piece about St. Francis, and the poetry book that came out at that time. Also, I love, it's one of my favorite books of Fanny's. After art school in New York, Fanny was living on the Bowery, known as Skid Row then, and reading manuscripts for Avon. I find this so interesting about Fanny. Avon paperbacks. This is a long time ago. She wrote nurse novels for Avon under a pseudonym alongside her own poetry and fiction. Well, Charles says, I have these nurse novels. They were recently republished, all 5 in 1 volume, the Sweet Nurse series. One of them, Vietnam Nurse, sold over 1 million copies. Of course, Fanny received not a penny. This is our world. So I think, all right, so I'm just going to, I brought this enormous book with me, which is my book. It's her book of her novels. It's called Radical Love, which is another title that tells you something about Fanny. And on the back of the book is a rave review by Robert Creeley, which I'm going to read because it's a wonderful praise piece for Fanny. I have not the least doubt that her work is parallel to Paul Auster's Say, or any writer thus whose books are not simply products for a market. About the work, albeit the work can reach a very large number of potential readers indeed. In Fanny's case, these will range from contemporary fellow writers questioning ways and means in their art, and all who find their enterprise of interest. Questions of religion, person, society, gender, politics, which almost anyone alive at this moment is trying to answer. Her most recently published novel, Indivisible, is a masterpiece of these determinants of lives, specific at times and places particular. At the same time, it is also a masterwork in the art, in no one more actively employs the strategies and possibilities of language than she does. I think this work has no competing unless instance I'm aware of. It is unique. I think it is importance in respect to the genre and to contemporary literature is very great. The collected texts are various parts of one story, one time, and locating place. Robert Creeley. Fanny.
Sorry, I'm very old. I'm always afraid I have to fall flat on my face. So here we go. You made a huge mistake. You said that all my nurse books are collected in one volume. No, they weren't. What? No, the nurse books I wrote are just bits of trash lying all over.
But I think it's so interesting that you did it.
I did do it,
Yeah.
and I made $500. I thought. There was a formula to it. I would write 15 chapters. Each chapter had 2 parts with 10 pages each. One part was for the sub-heroine, and the other for the great queen of nurses. It was fun. Good way to make money. So I will just read little bits and bobs, as they say, from various pieces here. This is from my book, Second Childhood, and it's called For the Book. Yellow goblins and a god I can swallow. Eyes in the evergreens under ice. Interior monologue and some voice. Weary fears, the usual trials, and a place to surmise blessedness. I'll just read from verse 5. Black winter gardens engraved at night keep soft frost on them to read the veins of our inner illustrator's hand internally light with infant etching. Children booked on blizzard winds, and then the picture is blown to yonder, and out of ink, the black winter verses are buds and sticks. Parkside. Stone walls and chalk scratches for different ages. None of us could be sure now how many we were or where. There were hurtful pebbles, cracked windows, and bikes. We cut the butter and the day's bread evenly. We were children and a metal bed. 12 loaves and 5,000 baskets. 5 baskets, 12 pieces of dough. 12 times 5, and butter for a multitude. Bread made, that is, with 12,000 inhalations of leaven. Christmas is for children on an English hill, simple, dismal, and blissful. A few little balls and crystal. Dark by 4 p.m., but you can ride your scooter up the hill and down in the Arctic rain, each drop a dimple and a silver handle on a drain, and a boy can stand beside your hand at the window of a store full of cribs and tinsel before an icon of the infant with the news rolled in his hand. The haunt of Gaza now, it has sort of brought me to realize how much children have been part of my life, and how they really are the reason to live. Not that it's your own child, but all children. And so coming back to these particular books was surprising that I was already so obsessed, because it is, the time we're living in is especially awful to children. And this is a poem called Dear Holderlin, after the poet Holderlin, and it was dedicated to Maureen Owen. Years ago, in a migration, we each carried our own rug and pillow, telescope and strings. Our tent was portable and able to be dismantled. It could be rolled and stuffed very fast. Flowers and grass still grew freely, and sea lilac had already cracked the tarmac. So there was sustenance. At the estuary nearby, 2 continents had split apart, and a curlew flew alone and crying. Carefully, a book would be buried with iodine and wine and food that doesn't rot. The cross is a good marker for an avenue in white clover, trampled where little sweet pea is growing higher. Down the hill comes a poet with ginger hair. He puts violets inside his hat, herbs and water, and says, "There was once music here, a round table and gang prayer, and an exploding glacier." Women kept each tent clean until one cried, "I'm going to take care of myself." We heard her packing the woods into her tote, like a nymph managing a shipwreck. After that, for us all, empathy was our only hope. And that was Maureen Owen, who's a wonderful poet, is a very itinerant person and very sort of pioneering. I think I'll read now from Dawn, that came out in 2003. And it's got a very grumpier position. This poem is called The Descent. The descent has deepened, the interior lengthened. Designated ending. Blind pulled down inside and then shot up again. To see east via the plate glass, a moon, a monsoon, an ashram. I used time almost wantonly in that bald but sensual sky to give me gusts and more measurement, not to snap the stars shut, but Joseph said, "You really ought to tender how you sail by eye. Your soul is just a length of baby." Someday, a sheep with green eyes will meet me at a door. Self, come in and be as vigilant as the alien you are. I will enter with a book in my hand, I'm sure. In secret space-time, the heart is a conductor who measures the length of a spirit's ride. Heart, come along and be as heartless as you know you are. Red comrades, inoperably close. I will follow with a book in my hand, I'm sure. Let it snow unless it is in heaven. Let it know what it is itself, that water stuff, as it covers the silver winter dinner bell. I have spent a lot of time in a monastery in Ireland, on the west coast of Ireland. And so this kind of consciousness keeps bubbling up at unexpected moments. The source. The source I thought was Arctic, the good Platonic. Up the pole was soaked film, an electric elevation onto a fishy platform, and waves on 2 sides greenly welcoming. The sun water poured on holy atheism. It was light that powered out my ego or my heart before ending with a letter. A decent soul comes in rum-red colors. It's a floating shadow, not water or air, but something nearly solid, a hint of cinnamon and bark. And some people know how to circle their lips around a mouth and suck the soul away, just by leaning in close, taking hold and tossing their legs around the person. You have to care for your soul because time is transparent and slides between you and your soul when someone else has it. He is sipping my own, a binge of memories, the color of raw sugar. It tastes delicious with the past. I left him, I lost him, gone. The named person, the tall brother, untamed and shaking. We forgot to make plans for this eventuality. No number or papers. I forgot to take the vital information from his raincoat pocket, since there was none, only stray ends. The chest of a robin reddened, inedible, like the thorn blood of Jesus on the mouth where Judas kissed it and made him into merchandise. The fallen angels folded their dirty wings across their chests and lowered their heads to peck for oil as if they didn't notice. Anyway, I said, sorry. I always get annoyed. This angel clung to boats and pecked at workers on their tits. It pissed and shat on their hair, as well as garden tents. Its song was repetitive. If the air around it wasn't soft, its feathers were. It preferred sugar liquor to bread and was Divine Mother's favorite. The mystery of preference is never solved by acts. The stations of my humiliation traveled from telephone to telephone, machine. Then I hit a knob and lost every message to an illuminated blackness. A prayer reminds me of a telephone call. It represents the way the end of things is on the ground. The ring comes whenever it will, because it's dark where the mountains mother, and being stuck in one spot is something to ring bells about, while the white goose travels thousands of nautical miles with one map and partner. And then here's a little more new ones, but I'll just read a few of these. The children turned back to me from eternity, uncertainly. Notes a bird chipped off, natality repeating its stock. They were nearly human, and I was happy to see a mouth in a face, not coldly attentive, saying, I think, but beings poured back onto Baggage Street, each against the wall, dreamily eating. Angria, that was the name of the Bronte's little secret kingdom when they were children. Angria. When we were a baby, she fingered my hood like a fly on the threads of the dead. When she was a web, I fingered her threads like a spider in love with a hand. A paper square and noose-like letters, a floor that's a wall. So when I enter, I crawl by my fingers and pen. Oh, Angria, so burn is the chill to seek and hit a place of guilt. No light, I can't, but let me write of my dimensional other, mind ulterior to the crux of this huddle, while sheeted pilgrims on autopsy tables show a way to win under covers of night mist and apple No holy talk confused them. They just needed a place to sleep with this possible grain of light, buried deep, frozen to wet, or else was the thing to hang self in cell, partially dying, like rain to mist, to graphic grays, growth of myths. Okay, and then I'll go over to this. And this is basically the last poem I might ever write. That's all I can say. I just am sick of it all. Totally sick. So this is called On a Night Never Seen. Oh, sweep, now it's telling me to write again. On a night never seen, sweep up your shadow, but you can't turn back. There is no other way through the black glens or the lens of an eye, a keeping, a stride into episodes that arise. Equidistant the interior egg until cracked open to stars some million beats away. How did the chick with thanks to God get yellow in the night of its oval chamber? The fire of its color was not a color yet. Now a green grenade is tossed on the mighty Shannon floor, ahead of its invention, before its time. I would like an answer to my answer. I would like more gods than one. In a nutshell, more songs. I'm standing on the wild Atlantic way, my back to the land. Why is my favorite rhyme. But a child's word is a rarity unless shot down. Why does an eye evolve in the dark? Roll back the future, perhaps, of curiosity. Which comes first? My daughter is in Derry before she has left Letterkenny to get there. I'm hearing her like a bell of war. The gong belongs to an idea of perfect being, sitting on the rock of its own vault while its funeral is finishing. Sound preceding the wind, song following the iambic. I feel you coming. Seekers are born in disguise, as shepherds wear cloth to cover their loins, more comfortable than tight pants, and glorious as signs of the soul naked and alone, a runaway from home, recapitulating. So there we are. Thank you. Thank you. Oh. Yeah.
Thank you for coming, everyone. That's it. Thank you, Fanny. Oh yeah, next week. Do you know the meetings next week?
Yeah, hi. Next week we're going to start with a new series by Future Poem. So same time, not next week, sorry, the week after. Next week we're taking off for Easter, so because in deference to Fanny. And we'll see you in 2 weeks, same time, same place.